Welcome, Sabrina, to the Dating Intentionally podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I've been following you since from like the beginning of your journey, and now you're here. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm so excited because I follow you and I'm like, I love her shit. So I'm super excited for us because I think we're very in line with how we see a lot of things and
Oh
any
yeah,
differences are welcomed.
yeah. I'm great. I'm excited to have you. And the first question I have for you is, what are you most looking forward to this year, 2025, on a personal level?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say I think it's a weird one, but I'll answer it like this. For me, I look at triggers and discomfort that I'm going through when I make a change, when I implement something new, when I have anything kind of coming up as like feedback for me as how can I grow? How can I evolve? How can I learn? And so I'm writing my first book this year, and that is fucking terrifying me. And so I think for me, I'm really excited personally to be doing this, but also I think on the personal note of that, I'm excited to dive in and understand myself a little bit more. Like, what are the fears that are coming up for me? What is happening in my body? Because I think for me, like, the only way I could show up sustainably and authentically outside of my career is for me to understand myself a little bit better. And I think that's just that's what I'm most excited about as far as like what's my personal goal for this year is to, it's the same as I've had the last couple of years, to be able to receive the flow, but handle the ebb when we're in that. And so I think
Oh wow,
outside of like moving to
yeah.
LA, that's what I'm excited about.
So you moved to LA this year in 2024.
We're moving to LA April 2025.
Oh, you're still in San Diego right now. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, congrats on writing a book. I mean, that process is not for the faint of heart. I wrote a cookbook a few years ago and published and everything, and it's like it's a lot. So, where are you in the process?
Just sold the book. So like literally getting to like
Congrats.
thank you. Yeah, it's like
Oh my
I
god.
was I was talking to because I'm hiring like a writing coach and she was like, "This is the best time." I was like, "Why?" And she's like, "Because it hasn't started yet and you get to get excited." And I was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. Wait, I didn't know you had a cookbook. What is the theme?
Oh, yeah, so I had a whole meal prep business before the dating thing, and I sold that company, and I had a cookbook and everything, so, the thing is, like, I kinda think it's I haven't had a kid, but I kinda think it's like that, like, I would do it again, even though it was really hard. Like, I don't remember the pain, I just remember
Yeah.
the end where it was like, "Oh, I have a book." It's
Where
fun.
you're holding that baby and you're looking
Yeah.
at it lovingly and you're like, "I forgot all that you put me through." I yeah, trust me.
Exactly. So I hope that you have a smooth, easy ride and that you feel the same way at the end, and I can't wait to hold it in my hands when it's out. Okay, so take us back a little bit. How did your journey to becoming a staple of TikTok dating advice start?
Oh god, I was the hot mess. I was her. I was like that's the nicest way I could put it. I and I'm sure anybody listening slash you can understand what I'm about to say. When I started this journey, I was just kind of lost. I was trying to find myself. I was trying to understand myself. I was the girl that couldn't sit still if she didn't get a text message. I was the girl that was on my dating apps 24/7 having panic attacks if a guy didn't respond back, challenging men to be like, "Why aren't you taking me out? I don't understand. Why aren't you answering me? Cool. Guess this conversation didn't go anywhere." Constantly looking for that external validation. And I'm sure you'll understand what I'm about to say. And probably anyone listening was like, I felt so alone. I felt like I was the only freak of nature out of my friends that was having issues. All of my other friends had no problem getting guys and meeting people and, heterosexual norms for me as a woman. But even my guy friends, I was like, wow, you have so much control over your dating life. You're not waiting to be chosen. And it felt like everybody else was doing it right besides me.
Mhm.
And I started to ingest content on the internet that was very like, send this text to get a guy into you. And I was like, okay, let me try it. And it's like, I got a dick pic back, but like I didn't get him to ask me on a date, And
Into you in the wrong way.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, thank you. And so no, I lived in New York for 12 years and like dating was shit. And then I moved to LA and I was like, it's gonna be better. And it wasn't. And while I was doing that, I started my own therapy. Like I always say, I married my father, obviously not literally, but like I married a man that was almost an exact replica of like the way he handled things, how he would make me feel, the way I would be triggered, our complete just lack of compatibility as two human beings. And after that is when I dove into therapy, started learning about myself. That was 2018 going into 2019. So it was about whatever it is now, 7 years ago, which
Oh, wow.
was wild to me.
How
And that's
what
when
is time?
right, I was like, "It's whatever day it is, time is a figment." But I started really, like, diving into that, understanding myself, and then as I moved to after I left once I left New York, moved to LA, started seeing like, "Huh, I keep repeating the same shit. And one day, so I was supposed to do Shark Tank in 2022 because, like you, I have a past life. I have a clothing line called Software. And I was on set and it was like, all right, Zohar, like, you're next. And I was like, fuck yeah, like, put me in the game. Let's go. I've been prepping for 7 months. This is what's going to be it for me. And while I was on set, they came in after 30 minutes of me waiting. And I was like, okay, like any minute now. And did the, I'm so sorry. We hate to do this, but we ran out of time today. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to fit you in again, but we'll try. And I went home and like I hit rock bottom. That was it for me.
Oof.
And I kind of lost myself for a little. And then fast forward a month later, I met this guy. He was super avoidant. I was trying to understand my dynamics. My dog passes away 2 weeks later. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I turned to the internet. I turned to TikTok and I was like, there's got to be other people that are equally as annoyed as I am about the content that we're ingesting. And here we are 2 years later.
Amazing. I mean, that is such a journey between, again, the Shark Tank, your dog, kind of repeating these patterns. I also didn't know you were married before. I mean, I've heard you tell this story before on other podcasts. And yeah, like you've been through so much, and it makes sense that why your content resonates with so many people because you've just been through so much. We've all been through a lot, but it's like you've been able to turn those experiences into lessons for other people, and I just think that's beautiful. I'm trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why I love your content because I
Thank
resonate
you.
with it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I want to start with the texting stuff because that's like where I think, right, your TikTok journey really took off was when you started
Yeah.
yelling at the internet about texting. And I was so excited to have you on. I'm like, I need Sabrina to come on to drill this wisdom into us, like all the way into us. From your perspective, what role does texting play in early dating?
Not much of one, I'll be honest. I would say this texting is a medium like anything else. So it's like us being like, what role do phone calls play? And you're like, a part of it,
Mhm.
right? It's like,
Mhm.
it's the sum of all parts. And I think what happens is like, our phones are little drug machines, right? They're little casinos, if you will. And so they're constantly like, every time you get a text message, your dopamine reward system starts to go into overdrive. And we're always anticipating, waiting, what's going to come. And they cause a lot of dysregulation. And I was that girl that if I will never forget sitting on my balcony in Venice, having a full on panic attack, like hyperventilating, freaking out, like trying to just pacing, like couldn't sit still because this guy I'd gone on 2 dates with hadn't texted me yet that day. And I remember calling my mom, doing the like, I'm telling you, he's not into me. This is it. Like the catastrophizing.
Mhm.
Just that was it. And I'm on Hinge trying to find anybody else that will give me attention. And then he texts me. Hey, how you doing? Like, how's your day? And all of a sudden I was a different person. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, whatever, no big deal. I'll just like stay home tonight. I'm good.
Wait, it's like when you're texting your friends, like, "Oh my god, he isn't texting me," and then as you're texting that, they just text you.
Exactly.
And it's
And
like,
then
"Oh,
you're
I'm
like,
fine now, never mind."
you do that. Just kidding. Right. And that's when I really started to realize, like, dude, this isn't normal. Like, this isn't healthy for you. This isn't actually leading you into the relationship that you want. And I started dating this guy in LA, and it was the same shit. Like, he texts me every day. We had pet names. We saved each other in our phone. It was the guy that I dated right before my dog passed away. And this is one of so many, right?
Right.
And after that, when we broke it off, that's really when it hit me where I was like, texting doesn't actually fucking mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Because if, let's say, we remove that, right? Let's say you say the texting is all great. What else are the issues? And more often than not, I hear 10 other aspects that are not kosher or doing well in the relationship, but we focus on the texting because one, what's happening in our brain. But then the second thing is it's safety. Well, if they text me, then I'm safe. Look, see, they like me, they want me, right? It validates me.
Mhm.
The problem is this person may not have asked you out in 3 weeks. This person isn't actually calling you. They're not intentional. They're not actually coming to you with any kind of depth. That's why when I say texting is just kind of another aspect of dating, we put
Right.
that as the all or nothing when it's all of 2% of the entirety of a relationship. Because my partner and I didn't text every single day. And like, here we are, we're getting engaged. Well, actually, by the time this comes out, we might be. But
Oh my god.
here we are, like, the ring has been purchased. I know that because he went
Oh
with
my
my sister
gosh.
and he was hard to hide. But my point being is like, it doesn't mean that just because someone texts you every day, that means that they want a relationship, and vice versa. Someone that just doesn't text you every day in the first 2 or 3 weeks of getting to know you doesn't actually mean anything. And I think more often than not, when we look at stuff and go, well, they didn't text me every day, and then they ended up breaking it off with me 3 months later, it's like I would put my full salary on it that there were a slew of other things that were wrong in this situation. But the texting is the first thing your nervous system noticed because it's the first way that we have our hypervigilance and we could be attached to something and to
Right.
try to seek safety.
So what's another example then of, like, if you're so focused on the texting, what are the other things that are happening that you would bet are happening? It doesn't work
This
out.
person's totally. This person's probably because here's the thing: somebody can text you every single day. Good morning. You can automate that. Somebody can. You can. I found that out. Somebody can. I've had it. I'll never forget. I
They
was dating a
automated it?
guy. Uh-huh. I'll never forget I was dating a guy and while he was laying next to me, he texted another girl good morning. And I saw it on his phone. He just didn't realize. And it's like anybody can send that at any point of the day.
Right.
It's low effort. So usually what happens is like if I look at someone and they say, "Well, they don't text me." And it's like, "Are they calling you? Are they making intentional plans with you? Are they consistent with how they speak to you? When you're with them, do they make eye contact? Are they having conversations of depth? Do their words and actions align? How else is someone showing up for you?" When I met my partner, he was very clear that he's like, "I'm not texting you every day. Like, I don't do that shit." But how else he showed up? He had plans with me every single week, like clockwork. He showed up, his words and actions aligned consistently. Anytime I'd bring something to him, we would have conversations of depth. He would make eye contact and have real deep emotional connection with me. He just was like, "I don't want to be tied to my phone. I don't like that thing." So
Right.
for me, I felt so much safer in so many other ways because this person was showing up in other ways as opposed to, well, they text me every day. And it's like, sure, that person can text you and 80 other women every day because they like the validation that they get from it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I like texting, and I in various parts of my dating journey, I definitely had several conversations going with many. Also, this is just a product of me being like an Instagram person and being able to carry hundreds of conversations over DM with people. Like I'm just good at it. So it
Yeah.
isn't hard for some people to do that. And I agree that we shouldn't put so much weight on texting. So what about the dater who is getting the signals that you're talking about, right? Like they have consistent plans with their partner, or sorry, the person they're dating, not partner yet, and they have eye contact, the questions, it's all there, but then it's like they're silent between dates, and it's like, okay, why is this so important to like? It's like you already have a plan with them. What do you think is really going on here? Where it's like, well, they're not talking to me.
Oh, it's clear dysregulation. What we have to look at is
Hmm.
it's like when we look at our nervous system, what ends up happening is it's a trigger. It's a cue to your nervous system that you're not safe. And we've put so much of the, and here's the thing, I was her too. Like I am with you. I love to text. Like I have me and my friend, me and Scott Lyons, we text like 1,200 times a day. We voice note each other. Like I've got all these people. But what I realized was my partner doesn't need to satisfy every one of those needs, right? Like I can have, like you said, I can have DMs. I can have my friends, my family, other people that I text photos to because, girl, I'm with you. I would take a cute photo and send it out to 8 different guys and see who was going to give me the validation that I wanted that day. And like, that's just me being a human and being real. But I think what ends up happening is when we look at, sure, we have plans more often than not, if we get down to, okay, so he didn't text you. What are you scared of happening? They forgot about me. They're going to find someone else. Maybe they ghosted me. Okay. So what it is, it's about the fact that you feel like you're going to get rejected or abandoned. This actually has nothing to do with this person because if they text you, "Hey, how you doing? Good, thanks. How are you? Good, thanks. Can't wait to see you Friday." Likewise, same. Okay, cool. Have a great day. What did that do to add depth to your day? Did that get to know you didn't get to know this person any better because text has no tone. Instead, what did it do? It reaffirmed, see, look, I'm safe. And then when we don't have it, it just reaffirms our core beliefs. See, look, I'm not safe. They don't like me, right? Whatever the narrative that starts to come into play.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, and I guess it's like, is it ever okay, or does it like automatically mean that you are operating from a dysregulated or anxious place if you crave a daily touch point? Like, yeah, okay, sure. It doesn't add depth. It doesn't add, you're not strengthening your connection with that daily, like, hey, like thinking of you, or hey, like I'm watching the show we talked about. Like, is it okay to want that? Is it okay to have that? You know?
Totally normal as a human to be like, I'd like to talk to the person that I'm dating. Where it becomes dangerous is what happens if you don't get it, right? Like, I
Mm,
can
okay.
want that. I can want
Right.
that all day. And if my partner says, "Hey, I'm not really big in texting," okay. Okay, thank you. But you show up in other ways, I'm okay with it. Then as you get along, it's like, listen, once you're in a relationship, you can text all day. I don't give a shit. The
Right.
reason that I advise against this heavy texting early in dating is one, it creates a false sense of intimacy. You think you know this person so much more than you do, and you think you have all this understanding. You're like, I've had 2 hours with this person. That's who I know. The
Yep.
second thing, text has no tone. So we don't really get to hear how this person's interacting with us. And here's the thing, if you want that, that's okay. You're a human. You're totally allowed. And if you want to engage in that, that's fine. The reason it becomes a problem is then if it ends or if it doesn't work out, all of a sudden it's, I'm not worthy of it. I'm not good enough. We start to, then
Mm.
there's limerence and obsession and what's wrong with me. That is why I advise against it. If you are somebody that could say, I could text somebody every day and then if they end it, I'm fine. go have fun. Good luck,
Right.
Godspeed, enjoy your day. But when the core beliefs start to be reaffirmed, when we start to attack ourselves, when we start to have panic attacks like me, that's when it becomes, hey, this isn't serving you. You're not connecting, you're attaching. And I don't want you to just need somebody. I want you to want them in your life.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying, it's like it's not just the act it's not really the act of texting, it's what we attach to it, which is like the safety element, the "I'm good, they still want me, they still like me," the validation element of it all. And that it's like you could replace texting with email, phone call,
Exactly.
pigeon mail. I don't know. Like, so I think that is a really important and really helpful distinction to make. It's like, okay, like, is it really the texting or is it something deeper that I am craving
Exactly.
right now? So let's just say you get to that moment. Like you're listening to this podcast, you realize you catch yourself and it's like, oh, I actually don't feel safe because they're not texting me. What do I do? Like instead of having a panic attack on your balcony, what's actually the right move?
Whoops. Um, so that's actually, it's funny. My friend Masha and I created a course, and it's the Nervous System 101 course. And we actually identified the four main pain points of early dating. And one of those was the texting. And the first thing, obviously, I'm not going to give away the entire fucking course, but
Yeah,
in a
give us like the
nutshell,
broad strokes.
yeah, exactly. The meat and potatoes of like really what to look at here is it's a couple of things. One, are we even identifying what happens, right? So if you don't get the text, are we so lost in our own shit that you have the panic attack and you're freaking out and you don't even know what's going on? So self-awareness is really obviously the first step to be like, hey, what's happening in my body? Holy shit, am I dysregulated? Like what's coming up for me? So once we do that, I kind of have like a little bit my personal like three-step plan that I like to do. And the first thing obviously after the awareness would be one, just stopping anything. Like you don't have to throw your phone. I do that, but maybe you just put your phone down because that thing is not helping you. It's only hurting you. And maybe the first thing that we do is just acknowledge I'm dysregulated. My nervous system doesn't feel safe right now. I feel like there's a threat, right? Because if you were in the wild or if you and I were having coffee and a man with a gun came up, our nervous systems are working beautifully. They're keeping us safe. The
Right.
problem is there's no threat, right? Somebody that didn't text you isn't actually a threat. You're not going to die. You're not going to be abandoned. You're not getting left. This is some schmo you met on the internet that just didn't text you for a fucking day. And so the first thing is obviously just checking in with like what's coming up for me in my body. Whoa, okay, I'm feeling this in my chest. I'm feeling this in my heart, right? Okay, am I dysregulated? Yeah, I'm having heart palpitations, like something feels very off. Then what I would suggest is do something to regulate, whether that be go for a quick walk, call your friend if you're like, hey, I'm losing my shit. I need your nervous system to calm me down and just let me know everything's going to be okay. Maybe you do the shakes. Maybe you grab a cup of tea if you feel like you shut down, right? There's so many different modalities and things that you
Mhm.
could utilize just to regulate. And regulating, all that means is it's not like a quick fix. This isn't a magic pill. It doesn't go away. But what regulating does is it brings you back to the present moment so that you remind and remember that you have agency and choice, right? That's it. Because again, in survival, you don't. Once we do that, then I would challenge, once you're regulated and you come back, then the last two steps I have is this. Put your phone for 3 minutes on your countertop and just sit and close your eyes and only focus on what's coming up in your body. So let's say, because it actually takes 90 seconds for an emotion to run its course. So let's say you put your phone down and you're sitting there and you're like, okay, for me, I'll talk about my personal. Like, I have this like heaviness in my chest. Okay, what does that heaviness feel like? It feels like there's this ball on my chest. Okay, what does that ball look like? Is it black? What color is it? It's this
Mhm.
black spiky ball and it's like hitting, right? Okay, can I sit with this black spiky ball? Is it sadness or fear? Oh, so this is what fear looks like, right? Notice how I'm not at all intellectualizing what's coming up. I'm merely for 3 minutes sitting with the sensation in my body because
Right.
so many of us don't want to feel, but that's the problem. We have to feel what's coming up for us in order for the emotion to pass.
Yeah, and I just wanna say right there, like, what you just described, this moment of, like, how what am I feeling? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Where is it? It took me, like, 3 or 4 years to get that skill in therapy. Like, I don't know why it took me so long to really feel comfortable, but it's uncomfortable at first, and I wanna acknowledge that, like, if it's gonna feel silly, weird, foreign, like, when you first try this out, but I definitely I mean, I co-sign this, like, learning this skill is so important for all your relationships, for everything you go through in life. It's just like being able to just name it. You don't have to deal with it. You don't have to like fix it. Just name it. Just try that.
Just name it.
Sorry, go on.
No, please. What naming it does is it turns your prefrontal cortex back on because when what happens is when we get dysregulated, we go into our amygdala, which is our fear state and where we hold on to emotions and fears and trauma and like all the shit that we dealt with up until we were 6. Then when you say, if you can even just name it, I'm dysregulated. I hate this feeling. I don't like it. You're turning your prefrontal cortex on to come from decision making and common sense. So it's very beneficial. And what it also does is name it, right? Name it, don't shame it, right? You don't have to add a story to it. It could just be I'm really sad right now. I'm allowed to be sad, right? I'm allowed to be sad that this person didn't text me. All right. Right. Let it, you let just, that's what sitting in the discomfort is. And by allowing yourself to sit in it for the 3 minutes, you expand your window of tolerance. That way, if it happens again, you're like, hey, I've been here before. I got this. Once the clock goes up, right? Like once you're done with the body sensations, which is really fucking important to do first, then we get to, okay, what's the narrative? So let's say the narrative is, he didn't text me, she didn't text me, they didn't text me. That means they don't like me. Okay, what concrete facts do I have to back this up? Right? I don't have any concrete facts. Okay, do I have any contrary thoughts? Well, they do work until 9, so they really could just be not by their phone. Okay. Let me ask another question. Do have I felt this before? How old do I feel when I
Mm,
make
I love that
statements like,
question.
it's
Yes.
my favorite. How old do I feel when they make statements like that? I feel like a child. Okay, what happened at that time? Well, my mom used to be really dismissive of me. Ah, okay, so this is triggering the feeling I had when my mother would do this or my father would
And
do
it's
this.
like then you in that moment, you realize it actually has nothing to do with them. That is, like, the beautiful part of learning this skill is, like, how you feel in that moment when you're waiting for a text has nothing to do with them at all, and it helps it just it's yeah, makes it a lot easier to deal with.
Rarely, honestly, rarely does it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
rarely does it because usually we only obsess over people that don't make us feel safe because the people that are
Mm.
secure and confident and quote unquote boring, right? More often I hear not of like, oh, I'm just not that into them. So once we do all of these, and people, whoever's listening, notice how much, notice what this is at least 10 to 15 minutes of your time. And that's why most people don't want to do it because when they get on the rumination and spiral, what ruminating and spiraling does, one, it's a coping mechanism and it's a trauma response. But what does it ultimately do? It helps reaffirm your core beliefs that you don't believe in yourself, you don't
Mm.
trust yourself, you don't, all of those things. And that's okay. You're a human. Here are actual tangible tools that you could use to cut through the noise and be in this present moment to say, I've known this person for 2 hours. I don't know who they are. I'm not being abandoned. Or I've never met this person or I've had 3 dates with them. No matter what, I'll be okay because I have my back.
So if I do this one time, I'm good, right? I don't need to ever do it again, I'm just good, like, and texting will never bother me, right?
Oh, if only. I found out the fun fact it takes 9,000 repetition 9,000 3,000 repetitions for a new neural pathway to be created.
That's a lot. That's a
It's a
lot of
lot.
repetition. So I think, yeah, it's I wanted to note this because it's like you could practice this once, then it will happen again, and it will happen again. It's and also it's not linear. And maybe you'll get to a good place with your relationship with this kind of text gap that you're going to deal with. You will deal with this in dating, by the way. There is no situation where you're not going to deal with this. So this advice is so pertinent. It is important just to keep. You have to keep doing it.
Even with friends, right? Like we
Yeah.
hear this all the time of like, oh, I'm fine with my friends. And I'm like, oh, really? As a girl who does this, oh, you haven't texted your friend and they didn't answer you that day. And you're like, did I say something wrong? Did I say something? Right. Or did my,
Literally, me last week, I texted my friend a joke that my husband said about, like, her situation. I was like, "I shouldn't have texted that. She's gonna hate that." Like, and I, like, started spiraling, and it was fine. Like, she
exactly.
got it.
Right. I did the
Yeah,
same thing. My friend didn't answer me all day and we talk every day, my friend Scott. And then I text him, I was like, are you okay? And he's like, sorry, babe. I was like so disconnected, love
yeah,
you. It's not you. And I was like, thanks. Just wanted
yeah.
to know. It's going to
Oh, yeah.
happen in life. It's okay to take a beat and be like, what's coming up for me? I didn't do anything. There's no way that, like, because that hypervigilance of like, I shouldn't have texted this. I shouldn't have said this. It's like, babe, if you just saying one thing sends somebody running, oh, please do me the fucking favor then.
When Ryan first said, "I don't do texting a lot," or when you were early in your relationship and you were figuring out that he wasn't the biggest texter, what was that journey like for you?
So I was anxious, and I remember telling my sister's mother-in-law. I call her my mother-in-law, but it's my sister's. And I remember being with her, going. She said, "How's Ryan?" And I said, "He's good." And she goes, "Really? Do you guys talk often?" I said, "Well, he doesn't text me every day." And she snapped at me and goes, "Here we go again. Sabrina's going to ruin another dating situation with the texting." And I looked at her and I said, "Actually, no, I'm not this time." And I was like, "I am letting things evolve." And even my mom was like, "I'm proud of her. She's really changing." And so it was probably like about maybe 3, 4 weeks of like me just being like, okay, let me see how this evolves. I'm not going to say anything. And then about the 3.5, like 4 week mark, I text him saying like, hey, hope all is well, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to be honest. Like, I'd love a little bit more texting in between our dates to feel more connected. Is that something that you're open to? And that's when he wrote me and said, like, hey, great to hear from you. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not interested in that. I spend 9 hours a day working in tech, watching screens all day. And then when I'm done with that, I want to spend time with my dog and my friends and family. I don't want to be attached to another mini screen in my hand. I totally understand if that doesn't work for you, but I just wanted to be honest. I'm not interested in a digital relationship. I'd much rather see you this week. Are you free for dinner? And I remember just being like, "Oh, oh,
Okay,
that's
s
hot."
what part was hot for you? The part where he asked for you to dinner or the part where he was, like, setting this very clear boundary or, like, all of it?
Yeah, the boundary was the sexiest part to me. I was like,
Oh, okay.
"Oh, okay, thank you for showing up as yourself. Thank you for saying no. And thank you for a thoughtful answer." It wasn't just sure or no, I don't want to do that. He was very real about like, here are my reasons. And from that point on, I was like, okay, this person is a safe space for me to come to because he doesn't judge or ridicule or put me down. He listened to me and he gave me a thoughtful response back. He set a really beautiful boundary. He didn't inappropriately use what a boundary is. And he said, I will not engage in that. But then I loved when he followed that up with, "Can I take you to dinner?" Because it showed me where I was like, he's so much more intentional than any man I'd ever dated.
I love that, and I thank you for sharing that. I think it's such a clear sign of, like, someone can they're not tethered to their phone, like, truly, just, like, it has nothing to do with you, it's how they run their life. It has nothing to do with their interest in you, in how they feel about you, and then you were able to meet him where he was at on that, and, like, and he also reassured you with the dinner invitation. I think I love that so much. Also, I really relate to what you said earlier, like, when you first met him and you were like, "I might never see this guy again." That's exactly how I felt with my first date with my husband. Exactly. I was like, "I'm probably never gonna hear from this guy again." Like, and I really
No way.
yeah, and I really did not care how it went. Like, genuinely was like, okay, like he's nice, but like, you know, I don't know, just at that point, I was very much like, let's just see what happens, let it play out. I'm gonna just show up and see what happens. And he kept texting me and he kept like asking me out. He was very persistent. It was very, I was like, this is different. I don't know if I like him, but he is showing interest, so I'm gonna keep going.
And I'm
Yeah.
glad you even pointed that out because I think something that's not really talked about enough, just in our culture, right, is we're so used to like, avoid this, avoid this, avoid this, avoid this. Okay, cool, cool, cool. I'm always on alert, right? What am I avoiding? But what we don't really talk about is how do you receive, right? Like if I'm so
Mm,
used to the toxic and the bullshit, like you said, this is weird. You keep showing up. Okay. And for so many of us, we, self sabotage, right? Self protection. We do these coping mechanisms of like, I'll find an ick, or there's something I don't like about this person, or no, they're too nice to me. They're boring. Because when we're chasing a spark, when we're chasing a feeling, when we're looking for something very specific that we're seeking out of this, you're destined for failure because no person
mm.
is ever going to be able to sustain that and show up as that. And so I'm a big fan of like, it doesn't happen when you least expect it. It happens when you release control to the outcome and just surrender to what could
Yes.
actually come from this.
I absolutely hate that advice. It'll happen when you least expect it. Like, no, no, no. You need to
No.
still show up. You need to still actually
Yeah.
like create the opportunities and you just show up the way you want to show up in a relationship, even though it's not even started yet. It's like that is how you have to act. And if the person is on the same page, it will just happen. It's not going to be hard. And you're not going to be like having all this anxiety about the texting and like the gaps between the texting and all these little granular things that just don't matter in the long run. I'm just so glad
They
you're talking
really
about
don't.
this. I mean, it's so important. So, I have a question about your anxiety though. Like, you've come a long way. What are you still working on now? You kind of mentioned it earlier in the conversation, like with work related stuff, but in your relationship, like you're on the cusp of moving to the next level, marriage, like hopefully, I guess, yeah, like, yeah. What are you working on now?
For me personally, I thought when I met Ryan, like, okay, well, that's it. All this is going to go away. I met my partner, right? I'm good. And what I didn't realize was like, nah, girl, this is just going to morph into something else because anxiety is a fear of the future, a fear of the unknown. And for me, I didn't realize that like I have always had high anxiety when it comes to money and finances because growing up, my father used money as a means of control. So he would giveth and he would taketh. And one minute he would be around his piece of shit girlfriend that he would parade around us and make us feel awful about and would only buy us things because she was there. And then when we would leave, he would make me return it or he would scream at me that I made him spend money on
Oh
stuff
my
because he
god.
didn't think that he needed to, because I should be taking care of myself at 15 years old. And I always grew up. I grew up with my dad, my mom crying, saying, please, I need money for groceries. I can't just buy 20. And he would give her a 20 and say, figure it out. And he always
That's so
used that as
rough.
a bait. So
Mhm.
I saw that, and he was incredibly verbally abusive and physically to us, not to my mom, thank God. And which is worse, right? I don't know. But my dad he had no patience for anything that wasn't how he wanted it because he's narcissistic, right? Here it is. He's like the textbook. You meet him and you're like, oh, this is what that means. Got it.
I relate. My
And
dad is very similar. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So I was like, I see you.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I thought when I had my relationship, my anxiety is going to go away. What do I have to be scared of? And it's like, I wake up to this day, every day in a state of panic that I'm going to lose everything. I wake up every morning of like, oh my god, but we didn't sell a course today, but we, and it's like this manic
Mm.
hamster wheel of like reaffirming my loops that at any point all of this will be gone. And doing the work through that has now established for me to understand, like with my own coach, because like I have my own therapist and coach, I have fucking two of them, is to understand, wait a minute, okay, I freak out when I lose followers. Oh, because my brain sees those as friends. And I see that as I'm losing people that like me. And so I'm working through my own traumas and triggers that have impacted me since I was a kid that are just no longer exactly my relationship. But to add to that, Ryan and I, we have talks, we have our own session every week because we tried couples therapy, and even the therapist was like, I don't think you guys need this. She's like, you communicate beautifully, you just need time
Doesn't
to
that feel like a
communicate with
gold
each other.
star when a therapist is like, "You're good."
Yeah, she was like, I really don't
It's
think
like
like this is it. And it's like it's such a validating like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm like, he's in therapy, I'm in therapy. And what are we working on now? His avoidance, and my
Mm.
anxiety, right? Like he still shuts down. He still will get moments where he'll get triggered, and I could see it. He's starting to teary eye, but he doesn't know how to communicate with me. He
Aw,
gets scared. I get scared, right? Like we're both humans. And I think it's one, I'm so tired of the villainization of avoidance. Like I'm tired of this conversation that
I'm
like they're bad
avoidant.
people. Thank you. And
Yeah.
it's like, they're not bad people. These are just human beings that deal with things differently.
And
And
my
it's like, no, 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 that
yeah.
person's not avoidant. They're an asshole. Right.
Right, right. There is a huge difference. I've had experts talk about this. I had Adam Lane Smith on a couple months ago, and he really like painted that picture of what the difference is between an asshole and just an avoidant person who just is dealing with their own insecurity and trying to survive. I, have been by my therapist dubbed having earned security, which is wonderful. So I definitely like not every avoidant is like so avoidant they can't function in relationships. Like, come on. And you know this, like Ryan is in a relationship with you, actively loving you, being there for you. You have guys have intimacy, like all these beautiful things. So I'm glad that you got it's wonderful what you're doing, all these different ways you're working on it. And it's like even people who talk about dating advice online still have to do more work. That's the thing. It's like it kind of never ends.
I was gonna say, you probably know better. You're a step ahead. You're right. You're married. So it's like, you know as well as know that the dating part isn't the work. The
No.
relationship is the work.
Being engaged triggered me so hard, Sabrina. Like, being
Really?
engaged was yes, because that's when it felt even more real and more real than I've ever I've only this is the only engaged and married experience I've had, so I was triggered so much during my engagement. Yeah.
It's valid. And I'll be honest, my first rendezvous with marriage wasn't like it wasn't built on depth. He didn't do anything special. It was a very like, we should just do this. And like
Mhm.
it was a courthouse marriage. Like there was no romance, there was no real love. It was very like, okay, let's just do it. And at the time I was like, I'll take anything I could get. Now I'm with you. I'm sure I'll be triggered. Like even just thinking about it. And to be honest, I'm the one who told Ryan no. I'm the one who's been telling him, please don't propose to me yet. I'm not ready because my nervous system is like, hey, girl, can we just acknowledge that this is somebody safe for you who's not going to leave you? And then maybe we can acknowledge
Mhm.
this will be
Good
your
for you.
fiance.
Good for
Right?
you. Yeah, I'm, like, trying to remember what my triggers were, and I can't now because it's like I've already worked through them, luckily for now. I mean, I'm sure the next like, if we decide to have a family, there's a whole another set that I'll have to deal with, and it's just like it is ongoing, and it is not linear, and I think, like, what you've been doing with your podcast and your course is just, like, giving people the tools to deal with anything that comes their way, and just knowing that if it's a texting today, it's gonna be something else down the line, even when you are even in the most secure relationships, like, you're gonna deal with this stuff.
100%. I always ask, if in 3 years would this still be a problem? Right? Like if you've been
Right.
with this person for 3 years, is them not responding to your text for a fucking hour going to be an
Okay,
issue?
well, I mean, when
Doubtful.
yeah, I mean, when you're living together, it's like the weirdest text. If I showed you a screenshot of my text, you'd be like, "What the hell is this?"
If I showed you half of ours of like toilet paper, right?
Yeah,
It's just
it's
like,
just one
okay.
word, just
Yeah,
like
or like
garage.
random
It's just
links to shit that I'm like, I want this. And he's like, can you not send me the shit? Like it's even now, he hates texting. And like, and again, this
right,
isn't a personal thing. You could see it. He's like, ugh. He gets a phone call. I'm like, God, you hate this thing. That's okay, right? People are allowed to have. And I think what we also want to learn too when it comes to dating and relationships is our lived experience isn't everybody else's. And we
right.
forget that just because I have had this doesn't mean that every person I encounter has as well.
Absolutely. So I want to go back to this one moment that you described in your early dating journey with Ryan, and that is you guys had sex on the first date, which tends to be a big no-no. I don't agree with that. I think it's fine. I have my own perspective on like when to have sex. But like there are people I do get DMs where it's like, "Oh my God, we hooked up. Like I really like him though. Like how can I turn this into something?" what is your advice for that dater?
Stop trying to control things you don't have control over, right? And
Mhm.
we to me, what I see this as is empower yourself from a place of not shame, because we see this as like, I slept with them. It's like, just because you slept with someone does not mean it needs to turn into anything. Like, there are people
Mm.
that are going to be here. I have hooked up with people and after gone, oh, I am not into this person. I don't want to date them, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
That was
that's
usually my
okay.
experience. Like, you know, yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of my experience. But then
Yeah.
and I was talking to Ryan about it yesterday. I can't tell you how many men I would sleep with because, like, I had a roster. I'll just say that. Like, I've had fun. And I'm not gonna shame myself. I don't give a fuck. But
Yes.
I like my therapist taught me what sex positive was. She was the one, she was like, I'm not gonna shame you. Go do what you feel is right. And I think what it really comes down to is, like, I was talking to him about this last night. I can't tell you how many guys I have tried to force myself to believe would be the person for me because we slept together. And
Mhm.
because I was like, no, no, I have to now be with them. And it's like, you don't. You are allowed to say not. But I would say this to anybody: if you choose to sleep with somebody on the first date, you don't know them anything and they don't know you anything, right? Like, you don't know this person. You are exploring yourselves physically. What I would suggest is clearly communicate along the way. Hey, that was really fun. Or prior to that, what are your intentions, right? Are you
Mhm.
intentional with the way that you're dating? Right? How did your last relationship end and what did it teach you about yourself? I don't care about your ex. I want to know what's the
Right.
accountability and what's your part in it, right? So that's kind of the first step, is clearly communicate. Then after, do what I did. Tell them, like, hey, this was really fun, but I just want to be clear. I'm not interested in anything casual. I'd love to get to know you further and spend more time with you and see if we have something here, but I'm not going to force something that, if either one of us are not in alignment with.
I wanna yeah, I like this a lot. You're basically saying, like, communicate what you want. You're not asking what do they want, you're saying what you want. And ideally, this is before you jump in bed, but I think could it happen after?
Totally,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, because 'cause you're kinda describing the situation as if, like, they're falling into this pattern of sleeping with me that means there must be something more. But what if you just wanna get to know them more and you're worried that sleeping with them maybe made them see you in a different light, they would've
What would
if you
make
didn't right.
I'll ask the question back. Why do you wanna date somebody who, if you sleep with them and you both made a decision from a place of empowerment, they're now gonna judge you and see you differently?
Right. Great, yeah. Totally. Right, why would you wanna do that? So, I guess, like, to the person who's feeling unsure, just not how to play it, right? It's like the deed is done. What's our next step? Just arrange another
To
date
me,
as if nothing happened? Like
I mean, I'd see you play it as if it's like you didn't do it, whether you did it or
mhm,
didn't, right? Like,
mhm.
so when Ryan
Okay.
and I hooked up, he planned another date and we
Right.
went to dinner and then we hooked up again, right? Like, we did the same thing because I wanted to as well. Like, I was into it and I was comfortable with it. And then if I wasn't, I would have said, hey, I don't want to be intimate with you. That was a little soon for me. I'd much rather go on a date with you and get to know you. But here's my thing. I am very much a thing of you follow your gut.
Mhm.
Where I have a problem with it is I don't want them to think of me differently. Okay, so you're trying to do it for a specific response. I want to make them wait for it. I want them to beg. I don't give away.
Oh
It's
my
like, no,
god,
no, no.
no.
Stop doing this for other people. Do it
Please.
for yourself because
Right.
you believe that this is what's right. If you want to wait, I could give a shit. Wait as long as you want. But know a couple of things. Not everyone's going to wait for you, right? Like, I will be honest, as a woman, I would never wait 3 to 5 months to sleep with somebody because it's too important to me for a relationship. If sex doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything to you, take as long as you want. I
Right.
don't care. But I'm saying my perspective of it is, I personally, even if I really liked a guy, I'd be like, hey, I kind of need to make sure we're physically compatible here. Otherwise, I'm also have needs and I'm going to get those from
Yep.
somebody else. That's
Yeah.
a me thing. If you're not like that, great. Don't be like, you could do whatever feels right. But it's also knowing that, like, I get people all the time of like, well, I waited, 6 dates and like then they ended it. It's like they have every right to do that.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with that also, just, like, maybe they just aren't into it, that's okay. Yeah.
It's okay.
So the
I've made men wait and they still break it off with me
right,
after.
yeah, I agree with you, the timing is kind of irrelevant. The 2 things I'm hearing from you, though, are 1, like, move through dating as, like, not attached to the outcome, whether you choose to sleep with them early on or wait, whenever, like, it's still you're just not attached to the outcome. 2, it's more about knowing yourself, and for me, like, I learned to wait because I learned about myself that I am pretty much turned off if there's no emotional connection. Like, that's just, like, I need the emotional connection to stay invested, so with my husband, I think we, like, fooled around on date 5, and then, like, after that, it was, like, fine. And I think but, yes, like, your sexual needs are important, don't wait too long. Yeah, please.
Girl, have you seen this one fucking coach saying wait 3 months to kiss somebody? I'm like, what is this? What
No.
are we what Pollyanna bullshit is this? Like no time of history
Ugh,
have we done this. And it's almost like we fetishize right now this like pure woman and you have to be pure and your body count. And it's like, listen, why are we shaming people for having basic needs?
no.
Again, if you don't agree, that's fine. You can tell me fuck off, I don't agree with you. You're entitled to that
Right, you
decision
get
for
to do it
yourself.
yeah, exactly.
You get to do whatever you want. But all I'm saying is I work with thousands of people in a year. I have 75 clients a month just on my practice alone, let alone
Wow.
everything else that I do. And I could tell you right now, 50% of them are men, and I hear it every day. Almost every one of my clients that is in a healthy and secure relationship, to your slept together within the first like anywhere up to about 6, 7 dates.
Mhm.
Once you start to, because then the long again, I've known people that waited 5 months and they're married and it's beautiful. My point is, it doesn't actually matter. What matters is the intentionality of both people and how you handle it moving on. Because just because you sleep with someone doesn't mean that all of a sudden you become stage 5 clinger, texting them morning and night and being like, but you lied to me. You led me on. It's like, no, they didn't. You both made a decision from a place of empowerment as an adult. So please stop shaming yourself for that.
Well said, and so wow, you work with a lot of people every year, you talk to thousands of people, I'm sure. What do you wanna see more of in dating?
Oh, I'd love to see more compassion. I'd love it so much more. It's pains me to see the black and white thinking, the rigidity. I'd love conflicting thoughts would be really lovely of like I think this person's amazing but I also know they're not right for me, right? Like or I really enjoyed my time with this person but I don't think that I want to continue, or I really liked this person and I understand that they ended it but I'm also really hurt, right? Like
Mm,
that's okay.
yeah.
And I think also just opening of perspectives, like that's why that black and white thinking, it's not serving anybody. Like well, I was watching Love Island. I love those shows.
I love
And
those shows too.
oh
Yeah.
God, I loved yeah. And the girl was going, men ain't shit, and like meditating, joking around. And I was like, do you think that's helping your dating life? Do you think attacking and making everybody the bad guy because they didn't ask you on a date is helping you? Or do you think that's actually keeping you stuck in your shit and playing the woe is me card when not realizing how much power you actually have in your dating life? So if we can hold compassion for other people, we can hold it for ourselves as well. And it will change the way you date. Because when you stop attacking yourself, when you stop holding yourself to these insane expectations and standards and rules, you'll also do that for other people and you'll allow naturalness to happen.
So beautiful. I wanna see more compassion too. I wanna see more conflicting thoughts too. That's so amazing, and Sabrina, this conversation has been enlightening. I'm so glad we finally got to have you on. Where can we get more Sabrina?
Oh, thank you, baby. The Sabrina Zohar Show and SabrinaZohar.com. Sabrina, well, on TikTok, if that exists,
Yeah.
Sabrina.Zohar, RIP. And then the Sabrina Zohar Show or Sabrina.Zohar on Instagram. It's a lot of Sabrina Zohar and then
Yeah.
YouTube, all that
Just
shit.
type it in into any search bar, you will find you. Yeah.
So you'll find me or someone that either loves me or hates me. Six of one,
Yes.
right?
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.